Alright, we are getting started here. Let me make sure. This mic is particularly sensitive now for some reason. Maybe if I turn it down a touch. Okay. Let's go with that. Yeah, okay, that's better. Always funny little things that change over time, I guess. Okay, so we're working on this page. I finished up this page. Well, actually, no, this page isn't done. I have one more thing to do on this page, so let's go ahead and do that. Yo, skunks. Missed last week's? I think I missed last week's as well. I don't remember. That was a long time ago, and there was a lot going on. I think I ditched the Thursday stream though. I don't think I streamed on Thursday because it was a pretty busy week last week, finishing up teaching and all that. So I don't think you missed much as far as the streams go. But I did. Like I was saying, I did do this page. A lot of technical stuff going on here. Generally pretty happy with how this page came out. There's a couple things that could be better, but yeah. This page, I actually quite like how this page came out. The hand is a little weird, but like, I don't know, it's gonna be weird. I think works. This could be a bit better, I guess, but not at the end of the world. These panels though look good, so I was pretty happy. So now we're just finishing up. I forgot to do the head strap for blind. So taking care of that real quick, and then I can actually think I'm done now. So that's done. I need to fix this eye here. So this eye doesn't look good. It's not lined up. It's not the right perspective. So I need to fix that here. These eyes came out good. I like how these eyes came out. This works. It's my thoughts on that panel. Yeah, I'm actually really happy to be done with this page, because this page was kicking my rear for a while, especially that hand. And like I said, that hand could be better, but whatever. I have an idea of the layout I could do for this page, but I just haven't implemented it yet, so I'm pushing that off. Knowing me, it's probably going to be the last page I do, and I'm just going to be like, why didn't I do this earlier? I don't want to work on this page. I really probably should do that page. What I'm probably going to do is the next page after this one is really easy. It's literally just 3 panels, her walking, her standing here, and her out in the middle of the desert. This is going to be a very, very quick page. It's very simple. So that's going to be nice. So I might take that day, whatever I do that, which should be tomorrow, off stream, to also at least prep this page and what it actually is going to look like. I need to go and just have it ready to go for Thursday at least. Yo, Bruno, good to see you. Yeah, hold on. Yeah, no, that doesn't make sense. That's better, but I think I need to move the eye closer, which I can do. I'm excited though, because the line work really is coming along. I should relatively comfortably be able to meet my goal of getting these pages done this month. Especially considering now I'm off teaching. I'm gonna have to do other things, but I am gonna definitely have more time to just kind of focus on this. For now, anyway, I might have more work in the future for like Lackadays or something. I don't know yet, but we'll see. Oh, nice! That's awesome. It's always really nice when you're able to get back to something that's like been driving you crazy. Truth be told, I still need to get back to writing myself. I've been neglecting that for a very, very long time. The last time I really properly wrote a story, because the Blind King doesn't really count because the method I'm using for that is so like loose and experimental, and like it's not a really intense writing process for this story. For better or for worse, we're gonna see. But so the last time I really did a proper like, did I even move this? I don't think I even moved this. Was probably back in when would that have been? 20. When did I finish that script? 2020? I think it would have been 2020. 3 years ago that I really did like any kind of like writing. And even then, it was just a script for another comic I have an idea for. And it wasn't even the last draft. I've actually got to go back and do a third draft. I think that after the third draft, it'll be ready, hopefully. And then it'll be ready to go into production. That's actually going to be the next project after the Lion King. Hopefully, we'll see what happens, and if I'm still happy with the story. I read it a while back, and there are places it could be a lot stronger. I'm going to try to tackle those as best I can. But yeah, there's actually also another project I really need to. I really want to and need to focus on in terms of where is it? Focus in terms of writing, but we'll see about that. There's too much to do. So much. Okay, I need to like figure out how I'm going to. I need to, so I'm, let's see, this is gonna be tricky because essentially what I'm doing is creating a very abstract representation of what everything is. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's it's been a long time since I was able to really do like the seat of the pants style, more exploratory or exploratory style of writing. I used to do that a lot when I was younger. I actually had a story I just learned about, like I had lost it, which really sucked when I learned that. That was fun. But I used to do that with that story, and it was super fun. It reminds me of in animation the concept of I don't know if I've talked about this concept, but in animation there's two ways to go about animating basically. There's pose to pose and straight ahead, and what that means is like I can draw a simple diagram here. So pose to pose is basically you take the idea of the keyframes. So let's say like someone walking, right? And they have a little guy and he's walking, and the keys of a or rather the extremes, technically speaking, of a walk cycle are what's called contact poses. And so you can kind of break it down like, oh, okay, so this is going to be 2 keys. And we don't have to worry about being on model here. This is just a demonstration. So we have our 2 keys, and now we can kind of decide, okay, what's the breakdown gonna look like? What's the so he's gonna bend, right? And the leg's gonna be flicking up and everything like that. And we can kind of go in and we can kind of fill in the gaps, and we can really calculate out, okay, what is this gonna look like? What's the passing pose gonna look like? Everything like that, right? Whereas straight ahead is what it sounds like. You just take your first pose, you have your walking pose and all that. I've been doing this pose a lot because I've been teaching walk cycles to kids, so I've been kind of reinforcing that. You take this and then you say, okay, what's the very next one? What's the next animation or next frame in the cycle? And maybe it's like his foot's beginning to go down. We can kind of get this more obvious kind of stretch out here. Things like that. And so there's benefits and restrictions to both of them. The best is to kind of combine them, actually. But it totally reminds me of the two styles of writing. I don't like this. I'm halfway tempted to just make this part of the color, but I'm not sure. Yeah, if you do it, you lose consistency to size. Exactly. And that's actually exactly what Richard Williams talks about in his book. If you're interested in animation, I highly recommend the Animation Survival Kit. It's a brilliant read by a brilliant man. Richard Williams, guy behind Roger Rabbit. I don't think I need to say anything else. He was the lead behind that in the animation department, and what a lead. He was actually really interesting as an animator because even now he's very unique, and most people just do not do what he did because of how like nutso it was to do this. I still can't believe like this is how he did things. Basically, I've probably talked about, and I can't show it because I actually need to get work done, but I can explain it. Oops. I've probably talked a little bit about twos and threes and things like that, ones, twos, and threes. And for those of you who don't know, the simple explanation is twos just refers to like how many frames you're leaving exposed. So you run at 24 frames per second, right? Like all animation pretty much is at 24 frames per second. Some deviations, but for the most part, 24 frames per second. And so if you want to cut your workload down really easily, it's like, well, okay, what we can do is we can just say, okay, well, let's just do half the frames. So essentially hold the frame for hold the drawing for 2 frames. So every drawing becomes 2 frames within the 24 frames per second cycle, and that comes out to 12 frames per second. The reason you don't just set the camera to 12 frames per second, especially nowadays like digitally, is because let's say you want to have a 1 kind of dotted in there, or you want to switch to like 3s or something like that. You can't do that if you're just set to 12 frames per second or just set to 8 frames per second. So you keep it at 24 and you just kind of adjust as you go. Richard Williams was a madman and decided, you know what, no, I am not satisfied at all with doing things on anything other than ones. So most of what he did, with exception of course, if he was doing something for himself and he was going to animate it and he was going to see it through and everything like that, he did it on ones. That was just how he worked. And that is just insane. Like the amount of work that is, not just because it's more drawings, but because when you do that, you're having to account for a way tighter spacing to make it look good. Ones are really challenging to make look nice. Most people are like, oh, well, twos or threes make something look worse because it's less frames, it's less information, it's less, it's not smooth, quote unquote. Everybody talks about smoothness. Freaking gamers. But, yeah, no, I'm in the mood. I don't have any light over here, so it's kind of this like awkward silhouette situation. But I have this old Canon camera. It's like a old like early 2000s like conference camera that I have hooked up. It used to be an old camcorder from 1994. I have that thing sitting over here. Might bust that thing out again at some point for things. But yeah. So yeah, I am in the mood. But so anyway, so a lot of people think like, oh, ones, if you want good quality, you have to do everything on ones. And kind of if you're going for the kind of Richard Williams, like really like satisfying, just super tight, elegant spacing. If you're going for that, sure, right? You need those ones. That's what's going to give you that effect. The thing is, though, that there are many different effects in animation. Many, many, many. And they all have a different feel. Threes feel different than twos, feel different than fours, feel different than sixes. Yes, some people work on sixes. I don't know how they do it, but they make it work somehow. Yeah, I probably, I'm a teacher, so I probably talk about this stuff way too much, but, um, uh, so the kind of frustration that a lot of animators kind of face is it's like when concepts are like simplified down in ways that it's like yes but no, and everything has that. Like you talk to any expert, there's always going to be some kind of like system that's like that within your expertise, right? For animators, it's usually like how you utilize frame rate and holds and stuff like that to your advantage. And so, truth be told, I really don't like the look of ones. I don't like the inherent tightness of that timing. It feels like, at least when I do it, it feels like I'm trying to match reality too closely. And that's not what I'm interested in. I'm interested in impact. I'm interested in weight. I'm interested in this feeling of like, the medium becoming the art, becoming the story, becoming this element that is communicating, and I feel like you get more out of utilizing the intensity of variable frame rate of threes, of fours, less of four. I don't really use fours a whole lot, mostly twos and threes, to really take advantage of that, just like almost like drawn out nature, right? It has an effect to it that's very satisfying when you nail the spacing. Unfortunately, I think that's sort of difficult for people to appreciate. One thing I really tried to pass to some of my students earlier, they were a group who were actually just coming over from someone else's class. I didn't even have them in my class, but they wanted to learn animation. I'm like, if you can get permission, like, let's go, let's do it, And one of the things I would constantly kind of drill them on, I would ask them, okay, what is animation? What is animation the art form of? And what I would tell them is animation is not the art form of pretty pictures. No one cares how pretty the picture is. If you stop an animation in the middle of the animation and you look at it and it's a smear frame and you say, ooh, that looks ugly, you're doing it wrong, right? If you play it in motion and the motion looks ugly, then you are criticizing animation. Otherwise, you are not criticizing animation, because animation is not the art form of pretty pictures. It's the art form of beautiful motion. And I don't think people really understand that. I think that people can appreciate it. I don't think there's really all that much of a barrier to appreciating animation in that way. It's just, I don't think it's really encouraged in that art form. And the same actually goes for cinema as well. It's been such a long time since I've seen a movie that really truly captivated cinematic experience. That was kind of pushed to the side in favor of flash and glitter and all that stuff that doesn't actually really do anything. It's why people complain about CG. The truth is, if you're complaining about CG isn't the problem. That's not the root of the problem. The problem is the abandonment of the art form, the actual art form, for the sake of a tool, for the sake of something lesser, But when you utilize that tool in a way that promotes the art, then you have something. Then CG can be really, 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 really cool. Like world-changingly cool in terms of like the cinematic world, right? Like you can do incredible things, but no one does, right? They do the same effects every single time, abusing their workers the entire time they're doing it, and the result is lackluster, right? Um, and so that's kind of like that's been my feeling. It's like someone's running a circus, right? The circus is great because it's super entertaining, super cool. See all these cool things, it's great things and everything like that. But it's like everyone's running a circus. That is this movie, but nobody actually really like understands the point of the circus. It's like you have the clowns doing their thing and their act and everything like that. And then you have the lion tamers on the other side and the elephants over there. But none of it actually feels like a cohesive unit, right? And so the experience is this rather lackluster, like, no one's in the right spot in the right time. And so the act kind of just sort of stumbles out, and you're not really sure where to pay attention to at any given time, so you're missing things, right? That's what it feels like to me. Like a lot of modern movies where like you have all these really talented people making things, right? For the most part. I'm not gonna get into that, but you have a lot of really talented like effects artists and stuff like that, you know, very talented people, very impressive technology and everything like that. And it's like no one knows what to do with it to actually make it meaningful, right? It's just like, well, we need CG because we need it. We need these character designs because we need it, right? And we're gonna throw together some trends. We're gonna do some think tanking to figure out how to sell this, and we're gonna come up with a little bullet board with all the things we need, right? And on one hand, it's understandable because it's a business, right? And so that's the nature of it. It's got to sell, right? But at the same time, art does sell really good. Like that's the kind of stuff that's remembered, in my opinion, is the stuff that like stood out, right? And so when you make it a point to be like, well, least common denominator because we're a business, it's like, well, no, that shouldn't be your goal. It's not that like having a business is the problem, right? That's not the problem, you know. I would like to be compensated for the effort I put into something, right? That just makes sense, right? But it's when you kind of lose the forest from the trees and start saying, well, we're not in the business of art. It's like, well, no, you are. So that should be your goal. That's what you should be trying to sell. But you're really not, right? At least you're really hamstringing your art in a lot of ways. And so that's kind of the frustration of it, right? It's not that it's a business, and it's not that it's not art or anything like that. It's just it could be so much more, and it has been. Like you go back in history, it has been, and part of it, you know, is obviously the separating the wheat from the chaff. But here's the difference: you're trying to sell me chaff as wheat. You know, B-class movies back in the 50s, they knew what they were. They were dumb movies that you went and saw at the theater once and never again, and you had a good time. You went out with your friends. It was a crappy movie, but yeah, you know, it was endearing. It's kind of fun. It knew what it was. But now it's like that's all there really is. Not all there is, but it's again, you're trying to sell me chaff as wheat. That's what I have a problem with. You want to make a stupid movie? Okay, fair enough, right? I don't mind. In fact, I like stupid movies. I think they're fun for the most part. But yeah, it just I don't know. It just kind of convoluted, kind of weird. So I just do my thing and tend to kind of shut up. This looks like crap. I need to rethink this. So the hood is folded back. That means that it's going to be kind of more like that. And it's going to be dipped. This doesn't make any sense. Her neck would be showing, actually. For the most part. So we need to figure out what this all looks like, this whole situation looks like. So we're going to actually fold this in. All the usual suspects. What's up, Evelyn? Oh, by the way, speaking of you, Evelyn, glad you're here, because it was really funny. The other night, I was talking with a friend, and I just put on some chiptune for the heck of it. And I look over at it's a 24/7 like random chiptune scene or whatever. And sure enough, I'm listening. I'm like, this sounds really familiar. And I look back and oh, look, it's a song by Evelyn. So I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah. Well, it's it's all about training your eye, and that's one of the most important things that you can do for yourself, especially early on, because your skill will kind of come up on its own, right? For the most part, like you can do drills and stuff like that to help develop your skill, obviously, but when push comes to shove, it's for the most part gonna kind of do its own thing, right? So long as you're working towards something. Yes, it was. It was actually apathy syndrome. That's funny. And so that was one of the best things that my brother did for me, because he was my like only real like art influence when I was younger, in terms of like someone I knew to like teach me art. Like I didn't do art in school. The only thing I did was multimedia, so like editing and filming and that sort of thing. And then I started getting into digital art, like on my own, basically. That class was great because I was basically allowed to do whatever I wanted to, so long as it was like multimedia related. And so I would just draw. I just started. Eventually, it just got to the point where I was just drawing a bunch. So I didn't have any of that influence, essentially. Yeah, I figured you'd appreciate that. Well, I always encourage anybody to pick up at least some kind of art, right? The way I kind of look at it is, it's good to have. There's 3 different categories of, like hobby in my book, and it's good to have one of each. One is a very like active hobby, like so bike riding or swimming or even like golf, something that gets you out and moving, right? Even if it's just a little walking. Exercise is a good hobby. Stuff like that. That's an active hobby, right? And then you have a very like hands-on like what's the term? Tinkering hobby. So something like maybe building models or electronics or even like woodworking or something like that, right? Something where you're just kind of like putting things together, seeing what happens, but not with any, like you have a clear direction, but it's not like necessarily a creative thing. It's just kind of a routine thing, right? Or a just kind of a process. So there's a tinkering hobby, and then there's an art hobby, right? So music, drawing, crocheting, whatever have you, right? Something that takes a creative mindset, though, that you are constantly kind of inputting and critiquing, and there's no real right or wrong way to do it, right? That you can just kind of do for fun. And I think it's good to have all three of those. I need to get back into like a more active hobby, I think, because oh wait, no, there's also a passive hobby, which would be like movies, even reading, cartoons, video games. I would count as a passive hobby actually, um, because you're not being active and you're not well, there's some games where you can be creative, so you know they cross and stuff. But generally, freeform taxidermy and whittling, yeah, those are good. Um, exactly, actually. Um, uh, I've never known how the back of her thing really works. I've always had trouble like figuring it out. 'Cause for the most part, truth be told, I actually do have a model sheet I did for my animation. Should probably like reference that. That'd probably be good, but I'm not going to. Yeah, something like that, King Bob, absolutely. Computers are definitely a hobby, like just when you're like messing around with them and stuff like that. I would probably count coding or programming as well, depending on what you're doing, as like it's a bit more creative, I would say, because you are like there's no right or wrong way to go about it technically, right? Or rather, there's a lot of different ways to do it the right way, quote unquote. And you know, obviously, there's ways to do it wrong, and it makes it a nightmare for yourself, and you want to tear your hair out. But generally, I actually need to erase this. This doesn't look like a good copy. Your brother's 14, yeah. Funny enough, that's kind of the same for me. Although he doesn't do a ton of programming, but he knows a little bit. He can definitely do it. He has a mind for it. Programming is one of those things where like I really don't want to get into it, not because it wouldn't be useful, not because like I think it's dumb. No, I did like quite the opposite. Like it's incredibly useful, but that's what scares me about it. Is like I've got barely enough brain space to be an animator. I'm gonna be perfectly honest. Like I can animate, like I can do it, but like truth be, I don't tackle it the same way as like other people who are just like hardcore animators, right? I'm not that level. Like even remotely, and I don't know if I'll ever be that level, right? So I need like all the brain space I can get to focus so that I can actually get things done. And so when you start mixing in coding and stuff like that, it's just like, no, there's no room. On top of writing, on top of music, on top of even like electrical engineering kind of stuff, I sort of do. Like it's just coding is like where I draw the line. And unfortunately, maybe one of these days I'll have to, but yeah. What time is it? Oh my word. I've spent way too much time on this panel already. Hated it, yeah. Yeah, programming is one of those things where like you gotta be into it. You know, it's like animation in that way. You gotta be into it. I was one of the craziest when I went down to university, because I went to university. Well, I won't get into this, but technically it wasn't for animation. By golly, I made it for animation. because freaking no one was giving me direction anyway. But which I guess I don't really care. But anyway, so I went to it, and to be clear, like a lot of people went to this program for animation. The thing is, like most of the people I went to school with, because like my expectation, my hope was, okay, I am by no means the best animator out there. Like, not even close. Not even among the people I know, like in my circle, right? I knew people who were really good animators, both younger than me and older than me, who had been drawing for less time than me, and people who had been drawing for more time than me. So I was like, okay. And I had kind of come to the conclusion that my focus was spread across so many things, and that was why. I was doing writing, I was making stories, like among other things, not just animating. And so it's like, okay, so very clearly, I shouldn't be the best animator when it comes to going off to school and going to a program full of people interested in animation. It's like, cool. That's actually really awesome, because that's going to give me a chance to really meet some people who like know their stuff, get hands-on time with people who are putting in the effort and will really push me, right? I probably won't be able to catch up to them, considering my interests and stuff like that. But like, I'll meet them and I'll get to interact with them, and we'll be able to work on projects and stuff like that, and I can get some experience there. Boy, was I freaking wrong. Because so by the time I went to university, I was a little bit older, by like a couple of years, because, you know, working for a year and then almost dying for a year. And when I say almost dying, I mean that very, very, very literally. You know, you don't have time for university or money, but that's another thing. So like, I'm a little bit older. Yeah, I'll have to tell that story maybe after this one. But for now, I'll keep on track here. But basically, so I go in, and I had already animated 2 films by the time I went to university. Very simple films. Very simple little films that I did on my own. One was only 45 seconds long. It's actually on my channel. You can check it out. Very simple little animation, but really fun. This looks better. This looks better. Better-ish. Sure, why not? Whatever. And so I'm looking around, and I'm looking for people who are animators, right? And I mean animators. Like I don't care how young you are, right? If you're interested in animation, you should animate, even if it's very simple, right? Like, doggone, I don't know anyone. At least really early on, like the first year I was there, I was like the only person who had really come in with any animation experience, as far as first year goes. Technically, I wasn't first year; I was actually a sophomore, so even more so. I was with sophomores basically in university. Pretty much, none of them had animated. Pretty much, more or less. And so that, like, I was like, okay, well, that's a huge disappointment, you know? It's like, and unfortunately, me not being, quite frankly, not being a very good animator. Yo, Guilty, good to see you. I was most of the time the best animator in the class. And it's like, that freaking sucks. Like, why is this a thing? And that's not me bragging. Like, I'm really, like, I wish I had better foundations in certain things. Like, I'm really lacking in certain places, and I know it, right? I just haven't had the time to just buckle down and do it. Part of it's motivation, right? But the problem is, it's like, I didn't meet anyone who had that motivation, really. Not in that way, right? You know, eventually, you know, people kind of found their place, and eventually people really did, like, became good artists and stuff like that, which was good to see. But, like, I was the only one, when I did the Blind King film, like that was me. I actually pitched that to my short film animation professor, because all of the other assignments that we were going to do were not a short film in my short film class. That ticked me off. So I was like, screw that. I'm building a pitch over the summer. I'm gonna do turnarounds, come up with a freaking storyboard, pitch this thing, and do it. Like, I don't care if he gives me permission or not, right? He's either going to like let me do my thing, or I'm gonna do this in spite of it. like that's where I was, right? I was about to like go full bore, like min-max hard into this animation project, like barely floating on my other assignments if it meant working on that film more. Thankfully, he was like, yeah, no, go for it. That's good. Go for it. I'm happy to see that. So I'm like, cool, awesome. And I got to work. I was like one of the first people to do that. And I'm like, why is no one else motivated in this way? Like, what's going on? Make a film, guys. Isn't that the whole reason we're here? We're here to, take a hold of this art form and actually do something with it. Good to see you, Kahuna. So yeah, that was a little bit of my university woes. It felt like no one was actually like truly motivated. And they were expecting, some professor or someone to come along and tell them what to do. And it was like, guys, you're gonna walk away with absolutely nothing. And unfortunately, some of them did. And it's unfortunate, but I'm gonna be honest. That's what I saw. And yeah, not all of them by any stretch of the imagination. Some of them became, like I said, they became competent artists. It was nice to see. But man, it was just kind of like it was a wake-up call in the opposite direction than I was expecting. Because usually, you have the big fish in a little pond, and then they go into the ocean. It's like, oh, all that kind of stuff. But I already knew that. I was like, well, yeah, like there's no other animators around me where I'm living, right? For the most part, I don't know any other animators around me in my town, basically, right? That I grew up in. Even in high school, I was like alone doing that. Like I was the only one making a short film, So when I say I was really excited to meet other animators, I was really excited to meet other animators. That's not who I met though. Thankfully, I did have another like part of that, like kind of like the fact that I understood that was from the fact that I was in other places, like with really dedicated animators and stuff like that. So I learned a lot from that, right? And that was really good. So I had that exposure, I had that experience, which was nice. So I did have it in some capacity, which was very like, I'm so glad. Because holy crap, it would have been bad otherwise. Someone else's vision, but I don't dislike it. Yeah, that is an interesting, like, I've never had to really deal with that, at least from like the perspective of generating like from my own vision, right? Because I've worked on other people's projects before, so I am like catering to their vision. I've done that before, and that's actually kind of nice because you don't have to worry about it. You just kind of give them what they want, and usually they're pretty happy with it. But yeah, I've never had to like, I guess I've never had the opportunity, is a better way to put it, kind of do that, because everything I've done has been on my own, right? Like all of my films, I was the only like, pretty much the only artist. The Blind King is a little bit different because I did have a little bit of help, and I did have an audio guy doing the soundtrack. So I did get a little bit of experience in that, learning how to project my vision in a digestible way to someone else. That was really important. I was really grateful for that opportunity. And it was really funny though. So the guy I worked with, guy by the name of Corm, you can go look up, like, I think it's Corminus Media or something like that. Awesome guy, really good friend of mine. Does a lot of stuff, photography, editing, that kind of thing. And one of the things he does is audio. And it was really funny because when we started, I was like, okay, I'm going to let him kind of have the reins in terms of, mostly on my channel there, Evele. So the Blind King is there, and what's called Bump is there as well, and my microfilm, Otherworld, which is the last video I uploaded actually. There's actually, I do have another film, funny enough, that's not on that channel. I might re-upload that at some point, maybe for an anniversary or something like that. Let's see, where was I? Oh yeah, Corm, and working on the music, stuff like that. Yeah, that's all of them. I've only managed to make about 3 films so far, but I'm getting the hankering to make another one, which isn't good because I have so many other things to do. I did do a microfilm though, so that kind of alleviated that a little bit, which is nice. Oh, I did see that in the Gilded there, Evele. Yeah, prayers going out for sure. Definitely. Never any fun. Let's see. But yeah, so working with Corm, my thought process was, okay, I don't want to step on his toes, basically, right? I want to give him some freedom to like have some fun, do, you know, the audio stuff, and compose, right? That's basically what I'm bringing him on for. What I quickly found though was what he was doing was what he was his immediate thoughts were going to, I should say, wouldn't work for the film. He was pulling from more of the standard cinematic elements, right? Orchestral, like staccato strings for tense segments, things like that. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, that's not going to work for this, because this isn't a standard cinematic experience. This is a very unique experience. So we need to reimagine what we're going for. And the way he described it is really funny. He's like, yeah, basically what you told me is throw out everything that you learned, like that you could possibly use, and start over. And I'm like, yeah, that's the nature of this project. We ended up though with kind of what I started realizing is I needed to give him more direction, and thankfully I have music experience, and so I was able to lay down some tracks and get some good senses, give him resources to work with. So once he had that, it was like, okay, so he had something to work with, and it was really funny because he actually gave me the first like cut, right? First like really rough cut. And I'm listening to it. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is gonna work. It's really rough right now, but this is gonna work. And he's just sitting there like shaking his head, just like, I don't know, man. I'm like, no, keep going. You got this, right? Kind of encouraging him in that way. And he's like, all right. And I was actually really proud of our sound design overall. We worked really hard on the sound design in general, and it was so important to that film. Just the themes of that film and everything like that. They just had to be right, And I think the score, it could have been better here and there, but it doesn't matter. It as it was, it worked. And so I was really happy. I was really grateful to him because he was willing to put like so much time, his own time into it. So it was really awesome. It was super cool. I still owe him for that actually, like hardcore. So I hope to repay that at some point in the future. Yeah, I've been thinking about that. I know you do a lot of like more of the like metal stuff. You're more into the metal scene, and a little bit of the, I guess a little bit of the harder metal than I am super fond of myself. Kind of the rougher voice and everything like that. Yeah, Brunner. Like it was so important. Like I knew it was going to be so important. And watching that film for so long without the sound and then having the sound in place was like, oh, it was so cool. It was super fun. It was such a fun experience. Um, yeah, I imagine you can do some variety. So it would be fun to like really figure out like, I don't know, it'd be really fun to collab on that somehow. And I know you have experience with chiptune, and I have ideas that could maybe really go with that. So I don't know. I'll probably think of something one of these days if I can ever afford to go with something like that. That's the hardest part for me. That's why I don't collaborate. It's not because I'm like, oh, I want it to be my perfect. It's like, it's because I don't have the means to compensate people. Love to get some banners. Ooh, that'd be cool. Let's see here. Yes, Richard the Ironhearted. King Richard the Ironhearted. Actually, we're gonna pull it back. Let's see. Nah, that's stupid. Hold on. Okay, I need to like actually draw through. Is that too big? That's too close, actually. And it's lots of cool people in here. Let's go. It's actually been really fun having you guys stop by. These streams were pretty quiet for a while. That's just the case. That's how it goes. I did have Taxi though. That was always fun. But man, let me tell you, I am so glad I got out of Twitch when I did, for obvious reasons. Yeah, but that is a great Disney film. That's a really fun one. That was in the heart of the Xerox era. It's really interesting. Not a whole all that history. So kind of a unique piece in that way. Last 2 weeks were crazy busy. Last week was pretty busy for me. Not like, I wouldn't say overwhelmingly, but just, you know, things pick up when school year's ending and everything, of course. Okay. Trying to get everything in order, all that jazz. Let me see what this looks like without. Yeah, that'll work. Get some perspective there. Pretty bizarre, but yeah. Let's see. What time is it? 6:58. I think I will just do the 2 circles there, and then I'll handle this in color. Use shapes, textures, that sort of thing to create kind of this bizarre, like, almost painted effect. Probably do that. Okay, so moving on. Finally. So. Aristocats for the win. I would say I actually am more inspired by. Truth be, the reason I got into animation is kind of funny. A lot of people get into animation because it's like, oh, I grew up with cartoons. I like cartoons. I think they're cool. I'm inspired by like what I saw when I was growing up and stuff like that. And I am as well to a degree. But truth be told, the reason I got into cartoons, like if I had things that I enjoyed in animation, like through and through, like consistently, like still, I wouldn't really see the point. Like if there was stuff that genuinely like did what I was looking to do, right? But I didn't see that. I didn't see things in animation that I thought I should have been seeing. So I was like, well, no one's gonna make it. Like, no one can read my mind. I can't pay anyone to do it. So I need to learn how to do it. And I do like animation. I do like doing it. I do like the craft of it. It's a very enjoyable experience for me. So I was like, okay, well then I can do it, you know. I'll give it a shot. And so it wasn't this motivation like, oh, I want to do this, or I want to do, I just want to be the next whoever, right? You know, my animation here. It's like, I didn't have any of that. Like the things that I saw, like it's because I didn't see it being done. There are exceptions, and the closest one is Cartoon Saloon's Song of the Sea. Have you read the French comic Oko? I have not, but I am intrigued. But yeah, so I come on YouTube. Okay, good. It was just a pause. So that's kind of where I was coming from. And it was kind of the same motivation that got me into writing, but in a different way. That was just a need to create, which, you know, is kind of inherent, right? And writing was the easiest way to do that. I couldn't draw at the time when I was in like middle school and stuff like that. I also wasn't one of those kids who grew up drawing, right? For the longest time. It wasn't until I was in high school that I actually started getting it. I got my first digital drawing pad. It's like, oh, I can actually draw. Or at least I thought I could. Seeing Polynesian fantasies. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, and that's really cool. Because, like, that's, you know, this very natural motivation, right? It's like, well, I just have this notion of what could be. Not in spite, not in, like, oh, we're going to prove it to the man or whatever. But just, no, I'm curious. Like, what would this look like, right? And not in any kind of pretentious attitude. It's not like, oh, you know, I'm so special. I have all these fantastic ideas. It's like, I don't know if my ideas are good or not. I haven't made them yet, you know? But I just want to see, right? You want to see where things would go. And you're not going to see that unless you do it, right? And so that's been, you know, the biggest motivation for me, in terms of just that inherent creative, like, experience, right? And so it was interesting because when I was in high school, I wrote a paper. It's my favorite paper that I wrote because it was actually really fun. It was a research paper, of all things. But it was on, like, where's 2D animation going to be in the future? Like, what's the future of 2D animation? Because, you know, it's always kind of been up in the air, like, oh, is 2D animation dying because, you know, Disney's not doing it or whatever crap. You know, that's where the animation industry begins and ends, right? And it's like, no. But it was a really fun dive, but like I was trying to kind of figure out my, like, I guess my motivation at that time for any of this. It's like, well, what am I inspired by? And the answer I had, generally speaking, was like, frickin', Homestar Runner. That's what I grew up on with. Eventually, like I watched like Tom and Jerry. Tom and Jerry was another one. That was my favorite when I was younger. And SpongeBob. But eventually, like I stopped watching SpongeBob because it got kind of stupid. Eventually, and just lack of interest and whatnot as you get older. And so the question I had was, well, I enjoy animation, not necessarily a lot of these cartoons. Getting older, so where's the cartoons for a more mature audience that doesn't involve grotesque amounts of swearing and nudity and stupid crap like that, right? Because I wasn't interested in that either. Still not really, right? And it's like, well, that's disappointing that doesn't really exist, So truth be told, the real like inspiration for me was things like Ico, the video game Ico, which if you don't know is like the prequel to Shadow of the Colossus, if you've heard of that one. Prequel sequel actually, but came before. Homestar Runner was dope. Homestar Runner is still dope. Man, I freaking love that cartoon. That's so, man, like that's inspirational. Not some weird like studio doing something like who cares, right? Like a studio, of course, the studio is gonna succeed. Like of course, Arcane like is gonna look amazing because they put like $1 million into it or whatever. But no, you just have like two dudes making a cartoon in their like freaking bedroom. And it's amazing. It's super funny, and you look forward to it like it's a regular show. That's inspirational to me. That's awesome, right? And so, but so my motivation was like, I was seeing these things in like video games a lot. Like I was getting this feeling from video games. Even stuff like Ocarina of Time, Zelda Ocarina of Time or other Zelda games and stuff like that. That was a big inspiration for me when I was younger, especially in writing. Funny enough, right? Because you don't think of it as being like this written thing, right? Zelda's never had these like most amazing story, but there's always been something about it that was inherently like interesting, intriguing. Like it had this soul to it that you couldn't put your finger on, right? And that's what I was after. That's what I was after in my own mediums. But I didn't want to make video games because that wasn't my goal. My goal wasn't video games. It was art. It was something else. So I started with writing. I started with story, just in the purest form I could. I just watched Sleeping Beauty actually the other month, a little while back. Absolute work of art, just in the animation and everything like that. But it's disappointing to me that that's like it's an all right story. It works as a story. But that, like, my question is, why do we look back on that as if that's like the pinnacle of animation storytelling, right? And it's like stuff like that anyway. Like, there's different films and whatnot. And they're decent stories, they're perfectly fine stories, but they're not like, they're very simple. They're very kind of bare bones, honestly, in terms of everything. So, like, there's so much more you can do, right? So that shouldn't be the end goal, right? Now, if you want to make a movie like that, okay, whatever, right? You have your different motivations, but don't call it something it isn't, right? Or pretend to make it something it isn't. If it isn't that, because then that's what everyone's going to flock to when they. And that's going to be it, that you reach the top, right? So that's kind of my frustration with those older Disney films. Not even, it's not with the film itself, it's with the perception of it, right? Like, I like those movies. I think they're fantastic films. But when that becomes the end goal, it's like, well, that's detrimental, you know, to the art form itself. That is a really crappy hand, but it'll work. It'll work. Yeah, whatever. So, and that's what I was noticing as well with animation. Was just like, okay. Black Cauldron. It had a good villain, but honestly, I watched Black Cauldron and maybe I went in with too high of expectations, but I really wasn't super impressed by Black Cauldron, generally speaking. And truth be told, that actually goes into an interesting point, though, in regards to 2D animation and how it relates to the narrative world. Which is to say, I think that a lot of, I'm going to be honest, I think that a lot of the films that are hailed, you know, these Disney films and stuff like that are hailed as these classics and such good storytelling, things like that, really aren't that great. They're fine movies and they're entertaining enough, especially from the perspective of like a family film and stuff like that. But like a great example, I watched a little while back, I watched for the first time, so fresh eyes, Atlantis. Looks really cool. I love that art style. I think it looks really awesome, and I would love to see more films with that art style or something adjacent to that classic, you know, late 90s, early 2000s Disney style is a really nice style. Like it's awesome. It reminds me of old point and clicks, like The Dig and stuff like that. It's great, you know. Wonderfully imaginative, very cool. But man, the story. The characters were pretty good as well, though. That was the interesting. I liked the characters, but the story, it just did not come together. Prefer Dark Crystal. Dark Crystal's actually a very good movie. I actually really like that movie. That one got it. That one had just such a unique. I mean, it was very much the mind of someone who wanted to make something truly unique, right? But yeah, so like a lot of those Disney films, I wish I could enjoy them more. I wish that it was just like, yeah, no, that's like a really solid film, right? Maybe not like the best thing ever, right? It doesn't need to be the best thing ever. But there's just too many things that make me go, well, you know, maybe I'll watch it again in 10 years if someone wants to watch it, right? You know, I'm not like really drawn to it, you know? Gotta head out, Evelyn. All right. Catch you later. Thanks for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. But who knows? Maybe that's just my interest, right? Like, I like Dune. Not the new one. The 1984 one. Like, I like that movie. I will say, though, like, I like, that is not to protect it. Like, I won't get defensive about, like, people say, oh, yeah, that's a bad movie. Like, because it technically is. But it's so dang unique that I still appreciate it. I like to watch old movies and see how bad just having a cell phone destroys the plot. I used to be into watching older movies quite a bit. I still do. Every now and again. But like I remember watching like oh god, it's a really shoot, The Black Cat. Yeah, I remember staying up one night when I was younger to watch that film. Just because I wanted to, right? It was on late, and my parents had gone to sleep, and so I had to like pull out my headphones actually to watch it. Great movie. That's an awesome movie. It's Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi. One of the few times they acted together. And just, I remember really just enjoying older films like that, just those classics and stuff like that. This hand, okay, this hand does not work. This is awful. The Masters of Horror together. Yeah, no, and so that was like, I was like genuinely excited to see it because I was like, oh man, Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi, like heck yeah, you know, like that's gonna be awesome, and it was. Just the acting, just such good actors. And yeah, it's been a while since I really enjoyed this older film. I should look into, because there was a lot of them I wanted to watch I never got around to, so I really should. I should go back and like find those. Heck, my favorite film, the movie that made me fall in love with movies was Metropolis, 1926-27. Fantastic film. Just Fritz Lang was a brilliant director for so early in the history of cinema. Just man, just excellent work on his part. Yeah. Well, and what blew me away... Oh yeah, black and white absolutely is a valid artistic thing. That would actually be really cool, Brunner. Like, actually, like, really using it for the art form itself. You couldn't get away with it with the bigger studios because, again, like, the fact of the matter is color does sell. Generally speaking, the public really doesn't care for black and white. Although, one thing my brother brought up that was really interesting, because he works in black and white a lot too, and he's more of a comic artist than I am, is with the rise in like manga and Japanese comics, which are primarily black and white, it makes me wonder if that's going to become more publicly engaging. If people are going to be like, oh, it's no problem, it's black and white. Yeah, you know, we get it, right? Because they've been more exposed to an art form that is like pretty much strictly black and white for, you know, technical purposes, right? So that makes me really hopeful that black and white will become a bit more like, I guess, understood in terms of artistic merit. We'll see. I guess we'll see. Just an appreciation of line work, really good line work and panel layout, things like that. You know, things that really actually like comics are about, I think. Now the color doesn't add. I mean, I'm making a colored comic for a reason. But you can make a comic without color. You can't make a comic without panels and some form of line work, right? You gotta have some form of lines in there, or at least, you know, some way of rendering, right? Some kind of tone, contrast. Ooh, that reminds me. I watched for a friend's birthday. He, I think, rented the classic Mask of Zorro film. It's Basil Rathbone. I can't remember who played Zorro, but it's Basil Rathbone as like the main antagonist. And I didn't realize this when I started watching it, but he was into fencing. And so there's a part in that movie where it's a duel. It's freaking awesome. Like, it was really well done, because like these are, you know, it's very clear that both of them really knew their way around a sword, and it just came through on the screen, and it was one of the best sword duels I've seen in a film in a long time. Man, it makes me miss that kind of stuff, because like, it is so satisfying when you see something that's so, okay, what is raw in its portrayal of a like combative element, right? Rather than, you know, just Hollywood. Shadiversity? Because, yeah, that would be cool. I think there's becoming more of an appreciation for that type of stuff, though. As people are becoming more familiar with, like, HEMA and longsword fighting and, like, what it actually looks like and all the really cool things about it. I think that I'm hoping that we will really see a lot more dedication towards really well choreographed fights and stuff like that. And the nice thing is, like, what it's doing as well, though, is like we now have these experts in these different art forms, these different fighting forms, that you can call on. You can be like, hey, we want to like get proper experts in these fields to not just for consulting purposes, but like actually like maybe even, I don't know, act, if acting would be possible, but like at least be like really involved, right? Okay, apparently I forgot how to draw hands. Again, I always do this. No matter how many hands I draw, I always seem to forget how to draw them, and I don't understand why. That works though. It's a small hand though, so that should be fine. Zorro is cool. I do like Zorro. There was a movie shoot, I can't remember the name of it. Maybe someone knows. But it was a Polish film. And a guy, they were in a town. And the two guys were fighting, and it was a really good swordsmanship on the part of the actors. It was an older film as well, and it was Polish. I know it was Polish. But I can't remember the name of the film. I wanted to look into it. It sounded really interesting. actually, that was actually a style of, shoot, was it 16th or 17th century, or maybe no, it might have been late like 18th or 19th actually century sword fighting called I think sword and cape or something like that, right? And so there were actual documented forms for fighting with sword and cape. And the idea was it was essentially like what you had on you. And so it was important to know how to use something like that, which you probably have on your person, in case you had to duel someone in the streets or something like that. Yeah, sword and cape, yeah. Which I thought that was really interesting when I came across that. That there were actual forms made up for sword and cape. Um, what's really funny is there were actually forms for harvesting scythe as well from like 1200s 1300s or something like that. They actually have documented like lessons and forms for fighting with a harvester scythe. Which, poor sap who has to fight with something that's used for farming. Yeah, most of what I see just comes through like these random channels, people like talking about just random stuff on the different elements of those histories and stuff like that. Let's see. Honestly, I would love to get into saber fighting, saber fencing, but I don't know if there's anything around me to really like get into that. Saber fighting's cool. Saber fighting's really cool. That'd be a good active hobby. Definitely keep me in shape. Westmark trilogy. I don't know if I'm familiar. Actually, the film that really made me appreciate sabers, funny enough, was this is my Moon recommendation of the evening. It's a film called The Royal Flash. It's based on I think a series of novels, and it's a really fun film. Essentially about an English officer who just sort of kind of bumbles through life, always coming out just, maybe not even ahead, but just breaking even, always just alive. And he gets caught up in a conspiracy, a German conspiracy for the throne. And it's actually really, it's cool, the integration of the history of the time. It takes place in the 1870s or something like that. Has Otto von Bismarck in it, if you know your history. And has really good saber fighting, actually. Pretty fun saber fighting. I remember watching that and kind of just appreciating that. By the same guy who wrote The Black Cauldron? Okay. Honestly, like, the thing about The Black Cauldron is, like, I feel like it's one of those things where, like, this is how I felt about Disney for a long time. If you give a story to Disney, especially in, like, the 80s and the 90s and stuff like that, you are going to get a watered down experience for the most part, right? Now, it may be a unique experience and it may be a pretty good experience as well, but there's going to be a capacity of it that's watered down. And like, so there's a lot of films, and it's only gotten worse as time goes on, where I felt like this probably would have been a good movie if it was not a Disney movie, right? I don't think I'm being profound when I say that, especially in this day and age. But it's an interesting thing. But I think it's been going on longer than just kind of in our modern incarnation, if you'll call it that. So they left all the best parts. Ah, yeah. Yeah, it's the hard part, right? Gotta adapt it, especially at that time. That film is basically the poster child for the Xerox era of Disney. Animation for Disney was on hard times, man. That was not paying. And it actually really wasn't the first time. Disney had been struggling previously quite a bit. Cinderella would have been their last film if it hadn't succeeded. Which is really crazy to think, right? Let's see here. Man, I watched a crazy video on like people's experience in the comic industry, where it's at. Truth be told, where it's been at for like 30 years or more. Honestly, more probably. I was just gonna say I'm really glad I don't work in the comic industry. I'm really happy that I can just like make my comic on my terms, not have to kill myself to make anything happen. Oh, that reminds me. The story of the time I nearly died. I guess I'll have to catch Elderly back up on this, but I can tell it later. The too long didn't read is don't work a job that stresses you out so much that your body decides it wants to kill itself. The long story is I used to work in a glass factory, and I was like right out of high school. And I was working one of the toughest jobs in the whole factory. And I really wasn't like mentally, like maturely, like prepared to like do a job like that, right? It was, 6 days a week, 10 hours a day. And I know some people are like, I eat that for breakfast, quite literally. But at the time, like, I was like, the job itself was just really brutal. like morale wise and everything like that. Just very stressful, very stressful. Just in general, a very stressful job. And I wanted to do a good job, right? I wanted to like really kind of throw myself into my work and like really make something happen, right? Because that's why I'm there, you know. I want to be a good worker and everything like that. Good at work ethic. That was my first mistake. Because what that did is it didn't give me the option to consider other avenues. And so what wound up happening is like I pushed myself and pushed myself and pushed myself and pushed myself and pushed myself. Yeah, right, King Bob. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm gonna like, I'll stick to it. I need the money. It's good. It was good money, kind of. Truth be told, not really. But it was good money for a kid right out of high school not making any money, who's looking to go off to university and do animation, right? And so I was like, well, I'll get to that part. And so after a while of doing this, like my body is beginning to like show very concerning signs, and I won't go into detail of it, but it was very clear that something was wrong. And if you're familiar with the condition I'm about to go into, you'll understand what those signs could have been. So I am like pushing myself, and I am like dying, right? At the time, I didn't realize it, but like that was literally what was happening. But I'm just like I don't know if I can keep doing this, you know? Like I'm like getting depressed. I feel like absolute crap all the time. I'm never rested. You know, I basically just sleep all day Sunday, and then I'm back to work immediately, right? And all it feels like I do is just like sleep and work, right? That get into that routine, right? So I'm like, okay, well, like what's going on, you know? And my body's showing signs of like decay, and it's like, okay, this is becoming concerning, right? It's like, so I talked to my bosses, and they had actually like proposed to me before. They're like, we want to like find a spot that's good for you. Like, we want you to be able to like do good work and stuff like that, right? We're not looking to like have you just like burn you out and just leave you like to just go off, you know? So they had proposed, you know, changing departments before and all that. So finally I tell them, I'm like, you know what? I cannot give you what you need in this department. I need to go. I need to do something else, right? I've got to do something just it's a little bit less of a workload. I just can't do it, right? Like I kind of explained some of the stuff that was going on and whatnot. So it's like, okay. So they put me on what's called muntin. And what muntin is it's the bars inside of the windows for decorative purposes and whatnot. And I did really good in that department. Like I was like, they put me on a table cutting the muntin bars. I was blowing them like out of the water with how quickly I was getting things done. So I took to muntin really, really good. I really enjoyed it. Problem is, the damage was already done. My body was like shutting down. And conditions were getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And so it's like, okay, like it's getting to the point where I need to get this like straightened out. Yeah. So I go in actually for a colonoscopy. So that gives you a little bit of idea of what's going on. Come back, really bad condition. I have ulcerative colitis, which is related to Crohn's, if you know what Crohn's is. And if you don't know what Crohn's is an autoimmune disorder where your body decides it doesn't like your digestive tract anymore. And I had it really bad. Like I had severe ulcerative colitis. So it's like, okay, I need like a sabbatical, basically, right? So I take a month off, and they put me on like prednisone and a few other things and stuff like that, which that was fun. Gosh, I freaking hate prednisone. But so I get a little bit better. It's like, okay, this is kind of getting under control. And I didn't really fully like I knew it was serious, but I was like, well, you know, it's still not like life changing necessarily, right? It's a little bit, but it's like, okay, you know, I'll make it work, right? So I go back to work. Oh, worth noting that when I was before, like, I got that procedure and stuff like that, I was like, my stomach hurt so bad that like I was literally like clutching it, like dying on like just like face down on the table, just like, and I did a full 8 hour shift. I'm like, why did I do that? Like looking back, I'm like, why did I do that? I only got like 600 openings done. That's not even half of what I typically do. Why did I even bother? You know, like just looking back, I was like, I was like psychotic or something. Um, and so I go back to work. I'm feeling a little bit better, but so I go back to work. I don't have that anymore, right? And it's still not getting as better as it should. And I remember a day when frickin' like I went in for a procedure, or not procedure, but a like a doctor appointment basically. The doctor was basically like, yeah, like it if it was gonna go down, it should have gone down. You're gonna need to go on biologics. And biologics, basically that's like the next stage, right? And that's like pretty much the last stage as far as like treatment goes. Like that. And that basically means, oh yeah, you're gonna be hooked up to a medication that costs way too much the rest of your life, and you're gonna be immunocompromised the rest of your life. And I was like, frick, crap. Like that was a bad day. Like that was a really bad day. And I went to a concert that same day. I was like almost like I was like, I don't even want to freaking go to this concert. Like I don't like I want to do this, you know? Like that freaking sucked. I'm glad I did go. I did end up going. It was a Silver Sun Pickups concert actually. Um, for an album that like got me through my hell job that was that 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 position in that place. Um, and so like that album means quite a bit to me actually. Kind of funny looking back. But so what ends up happening is like I quit. I can't keep working this job. It's killing me, right? I've got to focus on getting better. So I tried like changing diet and like giving that a shot to avoid doing the biologics thing, right? And that gives me a little bit of hope because I'm like, okay, maybe like just changing what I eat, I can really like fix this, right? Manage it, you know, have it like taken care of or whatever, right? And figure it out that way. That didn't work. So it's like, well, okay, fine. You know, I gotta do these biologic things. Like, all right. So I did it for a while. It made me feel better for exactly 1 weekend. As time went on, it stopped working. And I get another call. It's like, oh yeah, okay, so if this isn't working, then we can move on to another medication. But this one is the same deal, except it'll take 6 months for you to find out if it works. And I'm like at that point, I was literally like, I'm gonna be dead in 6 months. Because like there were other things. Like I was losing so much blood that I was like dangerously anemic. Like severely anemic. Like standing up, I couldn't get enough breath. I felt like I was suffocating on dry land the entire time. Like I couldn't get enough oxygen in my system because I didn't have enough iron to carry it. Enough blood in general to carry the oxygen. That was awful. Being anemic freaking sucks. So finally, the entire time in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, no, there is one other option, right? And I remember a conversation that my dad gave me at this time, where it was like, at the end of the day, we can't do anything for you. You have to make something happen, right? like, we can be here, we can support you, we can do all that kind of stuff, but this is a problem you've got to face. And so it was like, at that point, you know, I just gave it to God, and I was just like, okay, God, like, I'm gonna just do this. And I went in for surgery, and I don't got a colon anymore. And so that was the procedure, right? Story doesn't end there though, because the thing about it is, throughout all of that, the closest I'd come to death was being as anemic as I was, basically, right? So kind of, you know, dying, but not like literally at death's door. When I say I almost died, I mean like I was on a coin flip, almost quite literally. Because in the midst of that surgery, it was going to be a long recovery. They told me like this is going to be a long recovery, right? And it's like, well, I don't have a choice. I'm going to be dead in 6 months. It's like, okay, right? And they agreed that, yeah, this is a necessary action and everything like that. It's just kind of preparing me. It's like, this is going to be a long recovery. I was scheduled for 1 surgery. I had 2. 3 weeks later, after my first surgery, it was an emergency surgery. The reason being, my intestines quite literally ripped themselves open. Let me tell you something. That really freaking hurts. Like, I'm gonna be honest. I don't think that there is a more painful experience than that. And you can do the whole, oh, what about pregnancy and childbirth? I'm like, yeah, I'm sure that hurts. Like, I genuinely, you know, like, yeah, that hurts. My intestines ripped themselves open. And I went into septic shock. I didn't just go into septic shock. I was in septic shock for like 24 hours. So when I say I was almost dead, yeah, like I mean it, right? And so like it was to the point where I was essentially like blacking out in real time, like eventually. And I don't remember much before going into my surgery. Just, man, like it. Oh man, yeah, that was not fun, right? But thankfully, and I am grateful to God for this. I had an amazing surgeon, and he put together an amazing team that kept me alive while I was on the operating table and after. Like it is. I don't like to think about how close it was, because it was close. Like, yeah, like yeah, yeah. That's all I can really say. It's just I'm just grateful to God that I'm still here, because there's nothing short of Him that kept me here. So no, I'm very grateful. Like, essentially, kind of the perspective that my life took after that was like, you know, I could have so easily died on the operating table. And so everything after is like bonus time, right? You know, I almost, you know, shouldn't be here, quote unquote, you know? Just crazy to think. So sometimes I don't remember that perspective, but like, I don't know, that's a really powerful thing that I try to remember. And honestly, that's why I actually appreciate being able to talk about this stuff. You know, I don't really shy away from talking about this stuff, even if it is kind of like hard sometimes. Because like it just reminds me to be grateful, you know? And that's just, I don't know, I think that's really important in light of everything, right? And, you know, you don't always remember to do that. Sometimes it can be hard to remember that. But yeah, so it gave me, what I kind of tell people though is probably the best thing to ever happen to me as an artist was I almost died. Because after that, I was able to just go into things with such a mentality of like, make it happen, right? Don't wait to get better. Don't wait for someone to tell you. Don't wait, just do it, Waiting for the right time. Exactly, yeah. Like I got a second. In many ways, yeah. I mean, it was a very just like crazy experience, man. I will say, if you know anyone in the hospital, though, one of the best things that you can do for someone is visit with them, because hospitals are like surprisingly lonely. And I was in there for 47 days. I was in there for a month and a half in a hospital recovering. Not always recovering. Yeah, I wasn't always in recovery mode. I was in survival mode and try not to die mode and body what are you doing mode, a lot. But man, having people around you is so important. Like doctors and nurses and stuff like that, they were worried I was gonna have like PTSD from like what I was going through, right? And I don't think I do. Thankfully. But I think a big part of that was just the support I had. I had really good friends. My family was always there. And so having that, super important. Unbelievably important to the mental health of someone recovering in a hospital, right? And the other thing was, I remember I asked my brother one day, I got to thinking, because Stardew Valley had been out for a little while. And so I asked him, like, if he had an extra code, because sometimes he had extra codes for games, like indie games and stuff like that, lying around. And I was like, do you have a code for Stardew Valley just around? That'd be a nice game to play right now. And he didn't, but he just straight up bought me the game and gave it to me. He's like, here you go. Like, I hope you enjoy it, And I was like, that's really nice. And let me tell you, Stardew Valley is a great game to get someone if they're in the hospital and they're into games and stuff like that. It's very relaxing. It really helped you take your mind off things. And yeah, it was just really nice. I played that so much. I also read a crap ton of Hellboy. Like, in those 47 days, I read all of Hellboy and all of BPRD that was out to that point, which was like the end of the Hell on Earth arc at that point. So that was a lot of comics reading, man. That was fun. So I had things to do, thankfully, when I could do them. And eventually, man, the last week in the hospital was great because they have ice cream. They have a lot of ice cream. And when you can finally eat things for the first time in like 2 years, oh, that's a good feeling. That's a good feeling. It's just like, I'm just gonna watch One Punch Man and eat ice cream all the night. I deserve this. I earned this. So, that was nice. But yeah, a crazy experience, that's for sure. Truth be told, I actually do want to eventually, one of these days, do like charity stuff for like ulcerative colitis and Crohn's and stuff like that. I've done it in the past. I actually did it through Twitch a while back. Did a stream for it. But yeah, so I'd like to look into doing that more. Figure out good ways to go about that. One Punch and ice cream, yeah. It was good. Yeah, that was good. That was nice. Go. But yeah, so that's kind of the perspective I'm coming from. Come on, YouTube. As far as you know, my motivation behind my art and stuff like that is just, you know, you don't know how much time you got, right? Don't know when you're gonna get called. So I'm just gonna do it. So you can imagine my disconnect when I went to university, because this happened before university. And, you know, I met the kind of people there that I met. So there was kind of this gap in experience, I guess, and I guess I can't really hold that against them too much. And I don't. One Punch Man and ice cream. Yeah. I think from context clues you can figure out it's a show. What am I doing? Why am I drawing it like that? And now, okay, let's do the trees here. That, and now we need a ruler. And actually, we're gonna make our life easy. Because doggone it, I want to. Actually, hold on. Oh, come on. Let's see. I guess I should make a third one. Trying to think of it. Hold on. This will be our guideline for the distance because we want consistency. Oh, come on. see, this should be the last panel. Yes. So once this is done, and we're getting close. Once this is done, I'll wrap up. What time is it? Oh, almost perfect. Excellent. Oops. We're gonna assume that that's off. And I actually need to go reference this page because it's technically the same tree. So I'm not really sure. Okay. Or rather taller. Oh, welcome back. Some people just make you tired. Let's see. I'm kind of bummed. I haven't been super inspired to work on anything for the new prompts, for the art prompts. So I haven't really been submitting things. Yeah, look over next prompts. Workflow is rolling. Yeah, it was really funny. My brother he saw me drawing one day and he's like, "Man, you draw like an animator." And I'm like, "How so?" He's like, "Because you keep doing things in passes." No slump in prompts across the board? Huh, I wonder if people have just been busy or something. That is a little odd though, isn't it? I am gonna put the sun back here, because technically that's where it should be. Part of it's been me just being busy, but the other part is just, I don't know, this last one, I couldn't think of anything to do for it. Oh, shoot. One of these days I'll contribute to the writing prompts, though. That'll be fun. Yeah, honestly, there, Richard, that's kind of, oh, I don't feel bad. Well, I'm just kind of disappointed that, like, because it's really fun to do them, is the thing. And so I always, like, want to, but if I'm just not feeling it, it's like, that's a bummer, you know? Okay, and then, okay, we need to do the grass on the hill. I don't hang around enough to be bothered by anyone. That's my secret. Be a hermit. No. Nah. I have gotten out of the habit of, like, I don't know. I've hung around in so many different, like, groups and stuff like that. And I know the Iron Age is a movement, not a group. But it's still, there's still groups in the Iron Age, you know? But I've hung around so many groups. And I don't know. I've gotten... I don't know. Maybe it's just I've gotten kind of burnt out on it, on that dynamic. So I tend to want to do a more like one-on-one thing with people now when I visit with them or catch up or what have you. I guess I just appreciate that more. At least I have been as of late. Okay, I gotta change this. Okay, I need to be more precise. Okay, let's do the hatching properly. I'm not that fast. For the longest time, I really didn't do hatching, cross hatching or anything like that. I didn't get it. But as of late, I've been doing a lot of black and white inking sketches and focusing on form and shape and contrast, and that's really helped my sense of lighting on objects, as well as painting and doing color and stuff like that. That's really helped as well, understanding light and shadow and everything. Okay. All right. So this page technically isn't done, but it's going to be done in hatching lizard person confirmed. I think 2 prompts a month is reasonable. Yeah, that makes sense. Because that is one thing, like, a new piece every week was kind of hard. Oh, just talking goals. I see what you're saying. I got it. Catching up on the conversation. It's kind of funny. I'm not used to people having like independent conversations in the chat. It's cool. It's actually really cool. Let's see. 809. I don't know how I feel. I'll leave it for now. So this will be the next page, and this will be a nice and short page. Should be nice. Just a couple drawings. I still really like how this came out. We'll do some fancy stuff with that, but that'll be color. Okay. Get them gains. Yeah. All right. I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you guys so much for making this a really enjoyable stream, actually. It's really nice having like the chat going and stuff like that. That gives me a lot of energy when I'm doing this. Like, because some days I feel like really beat, and it's kind of hard to get through some of these pages sometimes. But having that motivation, like just having someone to talk to, this definitely gives me energy. Let's go ahead and wrap up. I will be back on Thursday, and I might possibly next week start streaming an extra day and maybe earlier in the day. I might start doing that. Maybe like Wednesdays or Fridays or something like that. Probably Friday would be good, actually. depending on how I'm feeling, I guess. But we'll see. Either way, I'm really liking how this is coming along. This page looks good for the most part. Not the best page I've done, but it works. I like it. I'm looking forward to doing the more surreal stuff when I get to color. That'll be really interesting to do. The next page will be nice and easy, so tomorrow I'll have a pretty light day, which will be nice. I can rest that day. That'll be good. This page is going to be a bit of a challenge, but I'm really looking forward to it. And then the big one, I'm really looking forward to this page. So there's a whole lot to unpack in this page, and I'd be curious what people think of this page and what this page is. If people know the story. So anyway, let's go ahead and wrap up. I'll be back on Thursday. Probably not back on like the extra day this week. I'll probably figure that out next week or something like that. But yeah, thank you guys so much once again. Thank you for hearing my crazy stories and the lessons and stuff like that. Super fun talking with y'all. So take care. God bless. And yeah, see you around. Bye.